You're listening to the REITE Club podcast, where the focus is all about helping you grow your real estate investment portfolio and live the life you want to live. Come grow with us and join our community at thereiteclub.com. And now your hosts, Sarah Larby and Alfonso Salemi.
The one thing I can tell you is that I don't care where you're at in the world. I think we all have the same challenges. And it doesn't matter if you're in Hong Kong or Malaysia or Australia, Europe or US, UK, Canada, is that most of the people in your life are going to tell you you're nuts to a certain extent. And I think that is the biggest barrier to overcome. And I had to overcome myself before I could overcome even the people tell me I was nuts. My dad inherited a couple of properties from my grandfather. My grandfather lived in a little threeplex, and he had a duplex across the street, basically. And he owned both of these properties. And I remember when my dad inherited these from my grandfather, my dad was in his late 60s, maybe close to 70. He was already 70 years old. He had no desire to manage properties. I'm college age at the time. So guess who gets the de facto job of being the property managers? Well, you eat here, don't kind of mentality is what my dad gave me. If you want to eat here, you might want to help me, paint and shampoo carpet and collect rent and all the stuff that a property manager has to do. And I'll never forget, I begged my dad for, I think, probably 6 or 7 years to sell those properties because I did not like managing those properties. And it wasn't, and he finally sold them, I think in 96, something like that. So he had them for probably about 7 years. And I wasn't managing them the entire time, but I do know that anytime I had to do something and manage them, I hated it. And so when we finally convinced him to sell those properties, my brother and I are sitting in the class in 2002. And I looked over at my brother and go, we're going to be getting more rental properties, aren't we? And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going back to putting our head back in the fire kind of thing. And then I'm listening to the guy and he's talking about lease option and wholesale. And I'm going, oh, you can do this business, make money and not have to be the quote landlord that a traditional duplex owner would be. Now, that doesn't mean we didn't start with duplexes, fourplexes, and eightplexes, which is what we did, because I think you have to kind of, get the process started. And the nice part about it is you learn a lot as you go along the path. But I think that's still the biggest issue is overcoming yourself and your own self-talk. But I think the negative people in your life, because everybody's going to say, well, I know somebody who owned property and they had all these problems. I know somebody had this and all they did were they were fixing toilets and talking to tenants all the time. Well, if you can learn a strategy like lease option and rent to own, as you like to call them, Alfonso, you start to see that there's different ways to make money in property or wholesale, where it's just an earned income strategy that doesn't take into the account of maybe we've done a number of rehabs over the years too. Am I a fan of them? No, but that's just, one part of the process. If I can make money wholesaling it rather than doing the whole rehab, I might take a quick $3,000 to $5,000 profit and not have to worry about waiting out the process of, a 3 to 6 month renovation and trying to sell it for more than you have in it and all that good stuff and market forces that are pulling against you. So I think your own self-talk is the biggest issue. And then probably the negative self-talk that you have from other people and getting a group like you guys have together at the REITE Club allows you to have positive self-talk. And that's huge, being surrounded by other people, no matter how successful or unsuccessful they have been, but at least making sure that you have enough successful people and positive people that are going to pull the rest of everybody up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned a lot of different strategies and, there's people that have their strategies and they go with it. And there's people that are starting to get into the game and they're like, oh, should I do this instead? Should I do that instead? What are some things that you would suggest that they think of before they pick that strategy or what are some, criteria that they should consider before saying, I'm going to go into the BRRRR strategy or the flip strategy or wholesale or, are there some insights that you can share on how not to have that shiny penny syndrome?
Well, I think, and it's tough to not have the shiny penny syndrome because as soon as you learn something, you're like, I want to go there, I want to go there. But I started investing in 2002, which I went through the recession of 2008 timeframe. And anybody that hasn't been through a major recession in property, I think is jaded a little bit on strategies. I think they're jaded a little bit on what their return on investment process can be. I mean, if you started investing in 2012 in let's say in the GTA, and you're doing renovations on property, you haven't seen a bad year. You literally have not seen a down year. In fact, I'm going to guess you probably haven't really seen a down year since 2008 or 9 in some of these markets. So I think what I would always tell somebody is focus on strategies that are not dependent on property appreciation, because in the US, we have pockets that are highly appreciating, but the majority of the US doesn't appreciate. You can still come to lots of areas of the US and buy a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath house for $150,000. Be hard to find a property anywhere in the GTA at 150. You probably can't even get a garage for $150,000 in 2020 in the GTA right now. All I'm saying is I think you're looking at being careful with trying to get proper or strategies, Sarah, that are worried about appreciation. Because if that's the major way you're going to make money, you're going to find times in your investment history or time frames in your property situations that you're not going to have the upticks in value, which means, yeah, you can force appreciation on renovations. You can use appreciation on lease options. You don't even need to worry about appreciation on things like wholesaling at all. You don't even need to worry about appreciation on income properties, whether they're single family, multifamily, or even commercial properties. So I think cash flow is still king, and that's where I learned it from Kiyosaki years ago. And lease option has a combination of both of those things, the cash flow and the appreciation. So that's why I've always been kind of, pushed to that strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Love the cash flow on the rent to owns. Yeah, we use a conservative. That's always the big knock that I always hear is, we're leaving money on the table, right? With rent to own and selling it back. But that piece of, helping people get into their property and own their house, that's the cool part is, I've experienced that now. I kind of say because of you is that, being able to help so many other people and you've been able to train so many people across the world and, different strategies, but really understanding, what the factors are of each of those, of strategies to get into. So I know you're doing a lot more training now and you're getting, it's been a while because you were, across the world training and educating people, right? So I know we've sat in some classes as well too, and you're rolling out some education, and it's all your wealth of experience that you're sharing with the world. So I think you one time said that sales is not a bad word, right? Everybody thinks Sarah has an extensive sales background, and she was pretty much a Canadian regional manager for the company that she was at before she retired her sales job. And I think that's what people, when they think sales, they think of that used car salesman. But I love your mentality of that sales is service. So can you go into that a little bit and share that with some of the listeners as well too?
Well, and I inadvertently, we're all in sales. If you have a spouse, a significant other, if you're a parent, you're selling every day. And if you're a pastor at a church, if you're a teacher, any of those things, you're selling every day. And even if you're an employee, you have to sell your boss on what it is that you are doing or want to do, or if you want to raise, those kinds of things. So it always amazes me that people don't think they're in sales. And I cannot stress enough that if you just, and you've already said it, but it can't be said enough. People look at sales as this dirty 5-letter word. It's like, oh, it's dirty. I don't want to be sales. But if you just change this 5-letter word from sales to serve, now I don't think anybody has a problem serving. Serving has this great connotation that you're noble. You can serve in your community. You can serve in your faith. You can serve in your family. You can serve your community or your country. So I think if we could just change that one word and realize that if I am selling you something and I'm serving you by doing it, meaning I'm showing you, so I sold you training years ago, but I actually gave you, I gave you the ability to serve your clients by doing that. And if I hadn't sold you, you wouldn't be where you're at today. If somebody hadn't sold me on getting a new microphone, I wouldn't have this nice whatever Bluetooth microphone that I have. And so, we're always buying, we're always selling. And it's okay to be in that realm, because as long as you're helping people, Zig Ziglar said it best, and I can use his quotes till the day is done. You're helping up other people get what they want, you're going to get everything that you want. But I think one of my biggest things that Zig Ziglar says, that's my favorite quote, but one of my other quotes that I really like from his says, we're all in the transportation business. If you're in sales, if you're in real estate, you're in the transportation business. You're helping people get from where they're at to where they want to be. That's transportation. I don't care what it is. If you're in religion, you're in the transportation business. If you're in teaching, you're in the transportation business. So we're all helping to transport people from where they're at to where they want to be. So Sarah's talking about new investors. We're helping them try to get to be a little bit more experienced investor. Well, if you're a human being and you have a desire, a want, a need, you're going to want to get from where you're at to where you want to be on the next step and then the next step. And however many lease options you do, and this is why I don't like to even talk about numbers and portfolios and things like that, because sometimes people see what you've done and it's almost like it's a deterrent. They're like, I could never do what Alfonso's doing, or I could never do what that person's doing.
Thanks for listening to the REITE Club podcast and joining our community of real estate investors online at thereiteclub.com, where the focus is about helping you grow. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks from your hosts, Sarah Larby and Alfonso Salemi.